for coming today. Talked a little bit about what I'm going to go over with you guys. Unlike, I'm sure, other vendor presentations you see, I'm not going to talk about product today. I really want to talk about what we're seeing in the industry, more focusing on kind of those medium and large size businesses, but I'll touch a little bit about the consumer space as it talks about desktop and how we're seeing really everybody move up into this great thing called the cloud that we've heard so much about. So, most importantly for everybody in the room, how and why are our customers changing? I think if we don't understand those two very big fundamentals, it makes it really, really hard for us to plan what the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years of the evolution of the data center look like. So, this thing called cloud, we've been talking about it for a while. It used to be called the internet. It used to be called the intranet when we talk about private cloud. But what we're really seeing is that really increased need to innovate inside business. We've gone through one round from a VMware perspective of our customers virtualizing their physical workloads, moving from racks and racks of one-use servers into really a better use for them. And now the next evolution is really how can customers increase their speed? How can they drive their agility to do things faster? And in a lot of cases, for a lot of my customers anyway, fast is the new cheap. They've really driven down those costs. How can they react faster to the business? But ultimately, they still have to maintain that control, and a lot of my customers are having issues with that today with, we call it shadow IT, people moving to Dropbox, people moving to Google outside of, from a Google Cloud perspective, sometimes from an Office 360, but really, IT is having a very big challenge maintaining control of this shadow IT environment. And ultimately, customers are looking for agility. What they do at home in their own time on their own devices, they expect the corporate world to be able to provide for them. They want an app store experience. They want it provisioned yesterday. They want to pay for what they use. No longer are IT groups able to say, oh, give us $10 million in 5 years and we'll provide that for you, right? People want it today and they want it really, really cost effectively. So, talked a little bit about, where those drivers are coming from, and this actually comes from a Gartner study that was done late last year. And, you can all kind of see what those pressures look like. Obviously, cost is a big slice of that pie, but agility and speed is over half of what these customers are looking for. They've got to do things faster. And really, that's about enabling the business to do things very, very quickly, get out in front of their competitors, very much like a lot of people in this room have to deal with. From an efficiency perspective, they need to continue to optimize the resources they've already paid for. And really, I talked a little bit about that consumerization of IT, right? They want the same experience inside the corporate environment that they get at home. So at VMware, we're kind of seeing a transformation, a kind of a three-pillar transformation when we look through the years, right? Up until 2008, really the focus for a lot of our customers in VMware included was really those capital savings that people were experiencing through reducing the amount of hardware that they had to deploy, reducing their data center space, and all the great things that come along with it. And the phase that we're really moving through now is this OpEx savings, right? Our customers are looking to automate. They're really looking to eliminate, much like they did 3, 4, 5 years ago, those people that were coming in changing tapes every day. They're looking to do that around the provisioning of corporate IT. And then as we move forward, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, it's really a whole transformation for our customers as they move to being service providers. They realize that they're competing with the Googles. They're competing with Amazon. They're competing with all these web providers, whether they be great, big, huge, ginormous ones at a global scale, right through to Canadian providers like a CGI. So for them, they really need to maintain that control, but ultimately, they realize that not everything's going to be done internally anymore. So this talks a little bit about how we see traditional IT evolving into that service provider model, right? It's really about, for our customers, being a broker of services. They've got to be able to pick and choose where it makes sense from an agility perspective, where it makes sense from a financial perspective, and they have to do it all in a very transparent manner from a cost, because their superiors are getting on a plane, or they're opening up a trade magazine and they'll see an Amazon rate card, or they'll see costs from another vendor that show ridiculously low pricing. And they'll get asked on Monday morning when their executive get back, how much do you do it for? And a lot of our customers can't even answer that question, let alone justify the kind of budgets that they've got today. First one that customers are expecting, and you probably recognize the picture up there, is really that self-service aspect, right? I think we all probably go into the grocery store on a regular basis and see a longer line at the self-service checkouts than we do with ones with checkers. There's a whole host of reasons for that, but we're seeing it more and more on the IT side as well. They want things instantly. You know, VMware, one of our huge advantages when we first hit the market from a virtualization perspective was you didn't have to wait for a server to get ordered through procurement and delivered physically and then built on site and then provisioned. We could give you a server in a minute, 30 seconds, right? Well, that's great, but there's a lot more that goes into it behind the scenes, and customers are demanding that as quickly as they can get an application on their phone off of that app store or off the Android marketplace, they expect the same thing in their corporate environment. They want to pay for what they use. No longer do they want to pay a great big bill and then slice it up and justify it. If they're getting X from their corporate IT environment, that's what they expect to pay for. They expect it to be efficient. Again, goes back into the pay for use. They're not willing to subsidize other parts of that business. And then finally, they want to be able to not only scale it up, but scale it down. Goes again back into that pay per use. It really comes down to the workloads change, much like we see more and more large businesses using temporary staff. We're going into the holidays and we see all these people that they get hired to over the holidays. These businesses need to scale up and scale down. And we see that in the corporate environment as well. So what are we seeing in the end user environment? Talked a little bit about this, but again, we see more and more people bringing more and more devices, that bring your own device methodology. It's not going away. It's only going to become more and more pervasive. And if corporate pushes back or corporate IT pushes back, people find a way to get around it. So they want to be able to work on their iPad, their Android device, their desktop. And from a business perspective, the management teams are all over this because it really allows them to wring more time from their people by enabling to do wherever they work, wherever they want. On the corporate side, or what we consider the traditional data center stack, we're seeing, again, more and more applications coming or being provisioned over the cloud. Think of Salesforce.com as a great example, right? Typically, things that were done on huge ERP systems are now being provisioned basically over the internet. And then really that public cloud, right? But ultimately, the message is that desktop is being pulled apart by cloud forces, and not just in a corporate environment, but this is also happening in a consumer environment as well, right? My parents, you know, I don't help them with their PCs anymore. I would just rather give them a laptop so I don't have to spend 45 minutes every Saturday on the phone troubleshooting the challenges they're having trying to install a new application. And really, so that desktop being pulled apart is a huge opportunity for not just companies like mine, but also a lot of people to be able to provide those solutions. And again, you know, talk about, you know, again, from a more corporate perspective, we saw workers traditionally being very desk-bound, one size fits all. Here's your corporate image, take it or leave it. And if you needed to get around it, there really was no way to do it. And now we're seeing this just, our users are not allowing that to happen anymore. They're finding any way around corporate security, ultimately that they can, because it's about that consumerization of IT and what they get to do at home. So where do we see IT going? And again, this is more a talk on a corporate IT side, but there's some very real parallels into the consumer world as well. You know, from a salesperson's perspective, you know, it's no longer am I spending as much time in front of the IT management group, because ultimately the business holds the budget, and those are the people that are able to sign the checks. And then reliability. This is one thing, as you know, as IT changes, the reliability aspect definitely doesn't. And then there's a unifying theme is the cost transparency. They have to be able to tell senior management, that CFO level, because we see more and more IT ultimately reporting into CFO. No longer is the CTO report into the CEO. A lot of cases they report into the financial office. They have to be able, with cost transparency, to show up to the business what they're really getting for the dollars they're investing. So in client computing, this is where we really see things happening. You can see along the bottom, talk about corporate devices versus personal devices. There's a huge blur there now. There really is no difference. Maybe 5 to 8 years ago, we did see people with the Batman belt with 2 or 3 different devices on their hip because they had a corporate device and a personal device, or multiples of each. But there really is a diverse platform that really has to be supported. Right here we show Windows and Android and Apple, and there's a whole host of other ones. Their data's got to be everywhere, right? No longer can the My Documents folder on your PC be where everything lives. People need to access it wherever they are, whenever they are. If it's on the GO train, and I'll be doing this on the way home, I'll be working on what I'm working on tomorrow because my data lives in the cloud across a very diverse set of apps. There's you've got Windows, you've got software as a service, some of them that we talk about there. But these, the whole x86 versus Unix versus Linux, there's again a huge blur there as well. And then you can see those devices, right? Traditional desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, etc. This talks a little bit about the self-service portal that customers are really demanding, whether it be in this case what we're talking about from a server perspective in the top right, right through to desktops. People want to be able to provision a desktop in one click, and they want to be able to provision a desktop not just to the people down the hall, but to the call center in India, to their sales rep that's somewhere in the southern United States. The self-service portal really brings those 3 key pillars we talked about around agility, reliability, and efficiency to the user. And in a corporate environment where we really see this happening, again, it goes towards being able to provision the entire stack, not just pulling up a virtual server anymore, but the entire stack so that you can hand a working service to an end user. So from a VMware perspective, this is what we like to share with typically our, the senior people that we're talking to out there, because they ask, everybody we talk to, one of the first questions when I talk about cloud to customers, I ask them, well, define cloud for me. Because if I asked 10 people in this room what cloud was, I guarantee I'd get about 10 different answers, probably 15. And customers, again, are not willing to do the model of give us $10 million in 5 years and we'll deliver a cloud to you, right? You have to be able to show benefits throughout the life cycle. So this is, in the SDDC from a VMware perspective is the software-defined data center. So we see most of our customers today at version 1 of the software-defined data center. And it's really about that standardization and the consolidation ratios from a virtual perspective, right? We're seeing more and more customers put, what we'd consider tier 1 mission critical apps on VMware, things like Oracle, SAP, Exchange, etc. But this is where most of our customers in Canada are. Phase 2, where a lot of the customers we're talking to, again, here in Canada today is they need to now optimize and protect what they've already done. We find really this is about, again, kind of high-level automation from a disaster recovery perspective, whether that be leveraging an internal solution or in a lot of cases looking to a third party because they don't want to duplicate their entire environment. They want to be able to scale up into the cloud. From our perspective, it's really managing that environment, whether it be a VMware environment, a physical environment, your application environment. Traditionally, people would have looked at things like HP OpenView or Tivoli to do that, and that market's really changed. Customers have had challenges with, maintaining a staff or paying a big bill every time they've needed to make a change in their environment. When I talk to a lot of people, what they think about as the cloud, it's infrastructure as a service. It's being able to take a pool of resources, divvy them up between different departments and different users and be able to serve that up really quickly. But I'll be honest, in Canada, we don't have many people there yet, and certainly a very small amount in production. Phase 4 really is platform as a service. So we talk about real orchestration and automation across the entire stack. Even if we look at the US, a lot of customers aren't in this mode yet. They're starting to do some testing, but if we look at some of the largest customers in what we know in the world, they're not at platform as a service yet. In a lot of cases when you look at platform as a service, because it's been very difficult in the past, they'll turn to, again, somebody like a Salesforce.com, and that'll be their sales platform as a service. But they'll let somebody else worry about the details. They'll let somebody else worry about that heavy lifting. And finally, what we see as really, kind of where a lot of our customers see as a panacea or true cloud is, they want to be able to do chargeback. They want to be able to present IT in a very financial manner to the senior executives at their company. They really want to talk about SLAs, whether they be internal or external. They want to hold their vendors' feet to the fire if there's an outage or if SLAs go, basically go down. And then they want to really act as a service to the business. So they're just another piece of the puzzle. They could be delivering a cloud service from Amazon, but it's all going through corporate IT instead of a developer with a credit card going around and basically plugging that in and doing it behind IT's back. But ultimately, this really decreases costs as you go further down, and it really increases the agility. But again, I'll be honest, from most customers in Canada, they're barely into scratching the surface on where we see SDDC 3.0 today. So why us? We have a lot of advantages, but a lot of people I think in this room probably haven't had a lot of exposure to VMware from especially a business perspective. So why us today? If we look at from the very top, we're a trusted vendor, right? We're probably in 95% of the Fortune 1000 companies out there today, which as a sales guy is great because I can pick up the phone and call just about anybody and get a meeting. I've worked in a lot of places that's not the case. Versus the alternatives out there. There's a lot of crowded offerings from startups. And when I talk about startups, I'm talking about kind of those small software development shops that are trying to hitch their horse to the cloud. Kind of our next biggest one is centralized and an integrated suite. A lot of what we've done has been developed in-house. We have made acquisitions that have made a lot of sense for us, but we grew these things from the ground up rather than taking a legacy solution that's 20 years old like some of my competitors have and re-engineered it and put them together, and I'd call it a Franken cloud in a lot of cases. That's brought complexity to the table, and there's a lot of cost associated with it. Again, that leads into legacy free. For me, everything's an endpoint. I don't care where it lives. I don't have to sell you a great big honking converged piece of infrastructure for $4 million. I just want to be the brains of the outfit, and that's where we're really successful. And then finally, open, right? I had a customer ask me the other day, well, why would I go with you guys? You're only a VMware company. I said, well, it doesn't matter to me. You want to deploy Microsoft? I don't care. My generalist sales guys that I work with probably don't like to hear me say that to people, but at the end of the day, I don't care. We're majority owned by EMC. It doesn't matter to me. IBM, HP, EMC, HDS. It doesn't really matter. Pardon me. So that's a big part of it. And then again, multi-public cloud deployments. We've got our own service, but we have a number of Canadian providers as well that use our stuff. And the next gentleman that's going to come up and talk a little bit about that as well. So the proof is in the pudding. So we've got a lot of to be honest, momentum in this space, right? These numbers, when I talk about our partnerships, these are everybody that provide everything from kind of VMware, traditional VMware, up to our partners that'll follow here. Talks about the leaders in the cloud space. You can see in some of those names, are probably pretty familiar to you. And everybody on that list we work with. We've made this as easy as possible to let you grow, let you start and grow with us. As your business grows, you can grow. There's people, from a service provider perspective in the city of Toronto that we do this with already today. So really our goal is to allow you to grow with us, and I'll let the next gentleman talk a little bit about that as well. But really we realize that you don't have a huge amount of money to invest out the get-go on the hope of if I build it, they will come. We really see the ability to work with, call it an incubation type model, to let you guys start small and grow from there. So I wanted to keep it fairly short for you today. I think you guys are on day 2, so I'm sure you've been sitting going through a lot of stuff. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'll turn it over to our next presenter.